Welcome to our YouTube channel, Mundelein Church of the Nazarene, and our journey through the New Testament, and this is episode 24. We want this to be an informative series to help you get behind the New Testament. 2 weeks ago, we talked about Colossians, and we had a question from Ryan concerning this idea of the spark of the divine, and really what that means and what potentially might be wrong with that statement. See, we say two things. In Christian theology, some of you might be familiar with this, we talk about that humanity bears the image of God. And then we have this term, spark of the divine. And to the untrained ear, that sounds like they're synonyms, but really they're not. When we say that someone is made in the image of God, here's what we mean. We mean that they are born with free agency. We know right from wrong. We know good from evil. And even above that, we can choose good and evil. We also are aware. We're self-aware. We are other-aware. And yes, we're even God-aware. That is something that's been placed in us. Genesis, we read in that early story about God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. That's not a physical description. That's not a medical story. That's a moral story. We're different because we bear the image of God. We see the world in roughly the same way. When someone says they have the spark of the divine in them, or everybody has a bit of the divine, that is literally saying that in some ways we share qualities with God. We are divine, at least in part. And the position for 2,000 years, the church is no, we're not. There's nothing in us that is divine. There's nothing in us that's godlike. We are the creation. We are not the creator. And we need to keep that very, very distinct. That language, spark of the divine, really flows from the first century. Greek writers separated the physical world from the spiritual world. The spirit world was all good. The physical world was all evil. There was nothing good. The body was corrupted. When Paul in 1 Corinthians talked about the resurrection, they had problems with that, because they heard that word as meaning resuscitation of a corpse. And there's nothing good physically. Later on in 1 John, when we read this verse that if you claim to be without sin, and we go, oh, how could anybody claim that they didn't do anything wrong? That's fundamentally misunderstanding exactly what the author of 1 John was trying to get to. They are not saying that no one ever did or committed a wrong act. What they were saying is that was the physical body doing the act. It didn't touch someone's soul, the spark of the divine. So in spite of what I do, I have the divine within me. In fact, what I have to do is just live out this natural divine that's within me, and everything's going to be all right. I know she's long gone. I kind of call that Oprah theology. That's really not what it's about. Most of us know that in order to successfully live out almost any life, let alone a Christian life, we have to battle ourselves, not affirm and live out naturally that which is within us. I don't know about you, but sometimes that which is naturally within me might be selfish, greedy, angry, bitter, maybe a host of other things. Our message in the church is not that this divinity within me must be lived out, but the message of the church is that which is within me can be transformed. And I can increasingly bear the image of God. I can increasingly become more Christ-like. Not that there's some physical husk that's evil that's got to be peeled away to get to what's good inside, but that somehow my inner world is changed to the point that my outer world matches it. That maybe outside I'm loving and graceful, not because I've hidden what's inside, but because there's something in and my outside is matching it. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth, the exterior, is speaking. I think those are Jesus' words. So when you hear the spark of the divine, you'll hear a lot of that right now. We live in another age that's very Gnostic. We live in an age that's very Greek. And we live in an age that almost wants to celebrate anything and everything that is naturally within us and proclaim that is what is there and should be there and naturally there, and all we have to do is celebrate it and it'll be fine. Scripture tells us a different thing altogether. And that what is in us is flawed and corrupted and stained and impacted by this thing called sin. My greed and my selfishness and my willful choices. So next time you hear Spark of the Divine, think about it a little bit. It might sound good, but it really doesn't match the Christian message at all. Yes, I'm created in the image of God because I can make free moral choices and I'm aware of my own standing. But that is what we mean. Anyway, join us every week. We're going to keep going through. Next week we'll get to Timothy, 1 Timothy and 2 Timothy, as we continue our journey through the New Testament. We ask that you like us, subscribe to us, and please keep the questions coming. We'll be happy to cover it. We'll be happy to change topics to cover your question. But I'll see you again next week.